So I got a chance to sit down and watch the latest comic book entry into 2023, this time from DC, Blue Beetle. This was directed by the up-and-coming Manuel Soto, and it stars Xolo Maridueña of Cobra Kai fame. And aside from The Flash allegedly resetting the DCU into James Gunn and Peter Safran's vision, and everybody claiming that The Flash was the greatest superhero movie of all time, Blue Beetle definitely feels like the hard reset. Xolo Maridueña plays Jaime Reyes, who suddenly finds himself in possession of an ancient relic of alien biotechnology, known in this movie as the Scarab. The Scarab chooses Jaime to be its symbiotic host, and he's bestowed with an incredible suit of armor. But this suit is capable of extraordinary and unpredictable powers. Gee, haven't seen that from a comic book movie yet. And this forever changes his destiny as he becomes the titular superhero. Yes, we have gotten very much oversaturated with comic book movies these days. As a massive geek, not that that's a complaint, it's just something that I've noticed. But look back at the year we've had so far. You have Quantum Mania, Guardians 3 coming out from the MCU. You have Across the Spider-Verse breaking records for animated movies this summer. And then you have mid-DC entries like Shazam! Fury of the Gods and, yes, I'm gonna say The Flash. Even though those are both pretty good movies overall, nowhere near top-tier DC. Now think back to all of those movies. Aside from the genre they exist in, what is the one thing that they have in common? Essentially, every single one of those movies was so hyper-focused on setting up a greater universe around it. And it was so concerned about setting up sequels, and the DC especially is so guilty of this. And even though we've gotten great movies like Guardians 3 and Across the Spider-Verse, which are amongst my favorites of the year so far, they definitely feel like they're setting up stuff down the line. So I gotta give massive kudos to a smaller movie like Blue Beetle. This feels like a comic book movie that came out 20 years ago, like the Spider-Mans that Sam Raimi came out with. It is so refreshing to see a movie like Blue Beetle come out in this genre, and it's a very focused narrative. It doesn't have to worry about setting up a world or setting up sequels or what have you, but at its core is a funny, action-packed, emotional thrill ride. And just like everybody's least favorite Vin Diesel franchise, it's all centered around the family aspect. And my God, I gotta hand it to Manuel Soto for nailing that on the head. The direction he took in this movie with the focused narrative, one central heroic force, one central villainous force, clashing styles here. Like, again, it just feels so refreshing to see a comic book movie like this. And I had a really fun time watching Blue Beetle tonight. And trust me, I'm not the only one. Critics have been raving about this thing. My auditorium was packed tonight. They had loads of fun. And I don't want to say this is a pinnacle and definitely the DC movie that will point this universe in the right direction, but it's certainly a nice step forward because trust me, while this is a very good movie, as I'll get into, there is plenty wrong with it. But I already started talking about the direction, so I might as well continue onwards. This is a very promising filmmaker here. And after seeing his work in Blue Beetle, I want to see everything else this guy has done, and I want to see what this guy has up his sleeve next. I love the way the action was helmed and the way it was choreographed, because yes, there is an abundance of CGI in a movie like this, but every action sequence feels so unique in and amongst itself. And there are lows that you can take from the action department of Blue Beetle, and you could certainly say there's a lot of memorable stuff going on here. I don't want to get too deep into spoilers or anything, but again, it's just so freaking clever, and it's so freaking smart with what they do in choreographing a lot of these fights. And I love that they're taking Xolo Maridueña's martial arts experience from starring in Cobra Kai and being the heart and soul of that, and they also implement a lot of that into the Blue Beetle action. Speaking of Xolo Maridueña, I am so happy for this dude, man. This is such a talented, young, up-and-coming performer. It shouldn't even be argued that this guy is the heart and soul of Cobra Kai. And to any diehard Cobra Kai fans out there that are worried that this guy's career is going to go nowhere after the series ends after this new season, I think this guy's going to be just fine, because there is such a wide range of emotions this guy is going through. Like, you definitely feel sympathy for this guy and his situation, not really wanting to be a part of it. He doesn't really think this is his destiny, which is certainly a theme this movie will touch on, is destiny. But I just love how this guy is able to take on these situations and take life as it comes, and he's able to adapt. And this is a guy who we're introduced to just graduating from pre-law school. This is a very intelligent guy, very charming guy as well. Xolo Maridueña brings it here. And I can only hope that his career just goes sky high after this. Xolo Maridueña, you killed it, my friend. I can't wait to see what's next and to see how you inspire people. I think this entire cast is certainly game for this project, and everybody looks like they're having a ton of fun. Adriana Barraza is really good in this movie. George freaking Lopez, man. Now, okay, I can sense a lot of people might get annoyed by George Lopez and his shtick. I don't care what you say. That dude had me busting up. And that brings me into my handful of issues that I have with Blue Beetle, even though it is incredibly fun and a great return to form of the traditional focused comic book film. But there are certain characters and things they do that aren't really overly explained well. Like, this is a movie that really expects the audience to suspend its disbelief and be like, oh, well, how is George Lopez doing such and such? How does this character survive this certain situation? And in a sense, that can be good in leaving some things up to subjectivity. But when you have little tidbits like that, they kind of need to be explained a little more. And I can't help but feel like the production and the release on this project was incredibly rushed, especially given the fact that there's some much needed actor and writer strikes going on in Hollywood right now. Like, this is a prime suspect to actually be pushed back at least a few months. Because as I mentioned, there is an overabundance of CGI in Blue Beetle, and unfortunately, a lot of it is pretty noticeable. With the exception of the Blue Beetle suit, which I absolutely love. Blue is my favorite color, and I love seeing it represented on a super suit like this. I love the way the super suit so seamlessly goes on. The way he actually gets the symbiote injected in him, while it's a pretty derivative little sequence in given circumstances, pretty hilarious how it's handled. But yeah, in regards to some other aspects of the CGI, like a bunch of the flames that are up and surrounding this big gigantic climax, like, I feel like this needed a bit more post-editing, because damn was it noticeable. Let's get to my big issue with this movie, guys. I love all the heroes on this movie. I love the main character, love the romantic interest, love the crazy uncle played by George Lopez. Hell, even the grandmother, who's kind of a throwaway character in a lot of cases. This isn't exactly a spoiler, but you see this Nana holding up a gigantic turret. What she does with that turret is, it's pretty interesting. But I love all the heroes. I love this central family. Love the sister as well. I thought she was really funny. She really grew on me. The other side of the coin, you have some pretty boring villains. And that's a huge missed opportunity, because as fun as this movie was, you could have very easily made these villains funny too, or at least somewhat entertaining, because they are either criminally underdeveloped or they're incredibly vanilla and plain. The former is in the case of this gigantic brute that Blue Beetle has to fight towards the end of the third act, and you do not know a single thing about this guy's motivation, why he's doing the things he's doing, up until about the final 10 minutes. And it's so sloppy, the way it's handled and the way it's presented. Like, it almost feels like the script forgot to develop this guy, and they were like, oh, okay, let's put this little tidbit here. Cool. All right, we're done. But I think the biggest crime out of this whole entire screenplay is the handling of Susan Sarandon. Now look, this is a brilliant, magnificent performer, and she is certainly eating up every bit of frame. But for God's sakes, this is the trope that I hated in the early phases of Marvel. This character is just Justin Hammer. This character is just Guy Pearce from Iron Man 3. The worst, most boring type of superhero villain. Like, why couldn't you have at least made her funny like Sam Rockwell was? Why couldn't you have at least put her in the suit? That would have been a really interesting twist on things. But no, it's pretty standard, pretty par for the course. And I know that kind of sounds like double talk on my part, because I just praised this movie for going back to the traditional superhero roots. But I feel like they could have tweaked a couple little things in there to really make Blue Beetle stand out. So I can't unfortunately say that Blue Beetle is an instant classic, but it is certainly a chock full of fun. I think despite all of its technical flaws, the heroes and the family dynamic and the humor that you get in here popping soundtrack as well, and a great musical score. Blue Beetle, I don't think is a great movie, certainly very good. And it's something that I can at very least recommend the comic book movie fans to go check out in theaters this weekend and see what you think. But I'm going to give Blue Beetle a B+. Such a refreshing change of pace for DC to kind of go back to basics. But let me know what you thought of Blue Beetle down in the comments section below. And what is your most underrated superhero movie that's ever been put out? Guys, I love discussing all new things in movies and entertainment here on the regular. If you want to join a community that is filled with film lovers and entertainment lovers alike, what the heck are you waiting for? This channel is the place to be. Do consider subscribing and tap on that like button as well. It really helps spread the love and helps continue to grow this awesome community, even past the point that it's already become, guys. Thank you so very much again for supporting the channel. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.